Welcome to the Crisis Cleanup Training for Phone Volunteers. Thank you for helping people who have been affected by disasters and who need help with property cleanup. Though this training is a high-level basic training, you will be proficient to take calls at the end of this training. There is a user manual you can reference with additional and more advanced information. A link to this file is included in the video description. Crisis Cleanup works with VOAD to respond to disasters. Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster, or VOAD, is an association of volunteer organizations at the national, state, and local levels that work together to foster more effective delivery of services to communities affected by disaster, promoting the 4 C's of cooperation, communication, coordination, and collaboration. Crisis Cleanup, located at www.crisiscleanup.org, is a website tool that is used in most disasters throughout the United States. It helps coordinate property cleanup efforts after disasters by connecting volunteers with those who need help. After a disaster, local organizations or agencies in the area ask Crisis Cleanup to create an incident and usually a hotline for residents to request help with property cleanup. When Crisis Cleanup is requested to open a hotline, we produce artwork for communities to advertise this number, like the example you see here. Survivors needing help call the hotline. A phone volunteer like yourself answers the call and puts the information into the system on a shared map. Then, volunteer organizations doing cleanup work find and claim cases, do the work, and then close cases. This allows everyone to work from the same map, which greatly minimizes duplication of efforts and fosters cooperation so that volunteers can help more people. Crisis Cleanup is offered as a free service to communities. Only reputable vetted organizations and agencies can access Crisis Cleanup, and no fees can be charged by organizations doing cleanup work. Your organization should already have access to Crisis Cleanup. If not, someone from your organization can register by going to crisiscleanup.org and clicking the yellow register button. We will contact you, register your organization, and set up your user account. After a disaster, Crisis Cleanup needs phone volunteers. This is a great ongoing service opportunity for those who can't physically do cleanup work, live too far away from the disaster area, or only have a limited free time to help. Volunteers take calls from home. Training takes about 45 minutes by watching YouTube videos. Shifts or quotas are not required. Organizations are free to determine any scheduling or quotas they will arrange with their volunteers. A good goal for individuals may be to work a few hours per week. You can watch call queue levels to determine how great the need is for volunteers at any given time. Our advice is to be prudent and pace yourself to avoid burnout. Phone volunteers must be associated with an organization registered in Crisis Cleanup. The requirements for doing phone volunteer work are a computer with internet access, a phone, and basic data entry skills. Organization members can click on the Invite Teammates button on the dashboard page to invite other individuals within their organization to set up a user account. Once phone volunteers have a user account in Crisis Cleanup, the first time only that they log into the site, they must add the phone system to their account. And here's how to do this. At the top right-hand side of the page, you will see your name. Click on your name and then click on Profile. By default, every user account is assigned the role of Field Worker. Click on the box titled User Roles, and a pop-down will appear. You can click Phone Agent to add that role to your profile. Next, click the yellow Save button on the top right-hand side of the page. Once the page refreshes, you should now see the phone icon appear in the black navigation bar along the left side of the page. You are now ready to take calls. General guidelines for phone volunteers. The disaster hotline is usually open 7 days a week during extended business hours which is 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. in the time zone where the disaster occurred. For all other requests, refer them to 211. 211 is a community information clearinghouse residents can call that is especially utilized following disasters. One additional number we'll give you is the Disaster Distress Helpline at 1-800-985-5990. If the caller sounds very distressed, emotionally, mentally, you may refer them to this hotline. If you are sent a callback call that goes to voicemail, leave a message for the resident saying, if you still need help with property cleanup, please call the hotline number again. If you don't immediately connect with a phone agent, be looking for a return phone call from an unfamiliar number and answer it so that we can connect with and help you. As a phone volunteer, your top priorities are to listen. All of these callers have been through a traumatic situation, and many appreciate someone just listening to them. Take the cleanup request and set expectations for the caller. Tell the caller that we cannot guarantee if or when someone will come, but we promise that you are on the list that volunteer organizations are using to find those who need help. If residents need debris cleanup, you can inform the residents that volunteers pile debris at the curb, but they do not haul it away. Residents should call local government offices to find out local debris removal plans. After a case is saved in the system, a text message will be sent to the resident and will allow them to upload photos and notes to their case and will allow them to close their own case. Also, after saving a case, you can inform the resident that when a volunteer organization does claim their case, they will call the resident to make arrangements before showing up. Other helpful guidelines are to write down the caller's phone number on a piece of paper in case your call gets connected, and repeat the mandatory information back to the caller to verify the accuracy of your information. And then last, before your first phone call for a disaster, it may be wise to call the hotline number yourself and listen to the information that the callers hear before they reach you. Now, at any time, if you need help, at the bottom of the black navigation bar on the site, there's a yellow help button. You can click that at any time and it will allow you to send an email to us, and we're quite responsive on that. And there's also a place for phone volunteers to chat to ask questions, and I'll show you that later. When you click on the phone icon on the phone page, you will see a map and a case intake form on the right side of the page. The name of the incident or disaster is located at the top left side of the page. You can click on the pop-down menu and access other incidents. When you're taking phone calls, it does not matter what incident is showing on the phone page. Currently, phone volunteers take phone calls for all open incidents. You cannot choose which disaster you want to take phone calls for. Also, along the top of the phone page, there is a list of the current open incidents and their hotline phone numbers. Also on this page are phone system icons that are highlighted in red, and the case intake form is located in blue. Let's talk a little bit about the phone system icons. The phone system icons are square icons located next to the case intake form. And there are 4 of these icons that you will mainly use. The first is the chat box. So here's a screenshot of the chat box. The chat box, it allows you to post and read questions and comments from other phone agents as well as site administrators. Then the next icon I want to show you is the megaphone icon. This is the news board, and this contains items of interest as well as tutorials, current bugs and instructions for phone agents to read. So it's always a good idea when you log on to check if there are any new news items available for you. Okay, the next icon is the call queue icon. And when you click on this icon, it will show you live conversations. This means the number of callers who are currently on hold. Now, since Crisis Cleanup does not have paid employees to provide consistent hotline coverage, survivors who are on hold for more than 8 minutes are given a message that they will be put into a callback queue and that an agent will call them back when they become available. And so this is the remaining callbacks queue. And then in this training, we will not discuss call downs. Now, if you click on the remaining callbacks number that's underlined here, this pop-up will show up and it will give you even more detail about the calls. It will show you their phone number, what incident they're calling in, if they've called before, how many times they've called, and it will also show what language that they would like to speak in. If you click on any one of these phone numbers, then it will call that phone number for you. The next icon is the clock with the round arrow around it. This is your call stats. And this is in case you need to look back at the previous calls you've taken, in case you need to maybe call that person back, or for some other reason, you need to look back at your history of the calls you've taken. Now, to take a call, here is the procedure. The first thing you do is you click the yellow Take Calls button at the top of the phone page. You enter the information in the case intake form. Then you click the Save button at the bottom of the intake form. Then you choose a call status, click Complete Call, and repeat. I'll show you how this looks. So when you're ready to take calls, and you click the Start Taking Call buttons, when a call is sent to you, a pop-up screen will appear. The pop-up is color-coded, and it will tell you the type of call you're receiving. It also tells you if the incoming phone number is also already associated with a case on the site, and it also provides a suggested script for you to say. So a live caller has a blue pop-up, and then a callback call has a green pop-up. Next, your phone will begin to ring. And when you answer your phone for a live call, you're directly connected to the caller who's on hold. When you answer the call for a callback call, the system will then dial the phone number of the survivor, and you will hear the phone begin to ring. If the survivor answers the phone, you can add their case in the system. If no one answers and they have a voicemail, do what we said before, leave a message telling them that if they still need help, they need to call the hotline again. And tell them to be expecting a phone call from an unfamiliar number and to answer it so we can connect with them and help them. If the survivor does not have any voicemail set up, or the voicemail is full, or if for some reason you do not speak with anyone, the system will then put that phone number back in the callback queue and try again in a few hours. After 3 attempts of doing this, if no one can be reached, then the phone number will be tagged as non-responsive. Now, as a side note, if the system sends you a phone call and your phone begins to ring and you do not answer your phone, maybe you get interrupted by a kid or a dog barking, or you need a break. Don't worry, as long as you have not answered that phone and have talked with the person, if you do not answer the call, it will be put back in the callback queue and it will not be lost. Now, once you have finished taking a call and entered the information into the case intake form, you then need to let the system know that you're done with this call. A pop-up is going to appear in the middle of your screen that looks like this, and it should show the call status tab. If not, you can click it here. First, you select the most applicable call status from this list, and then second, you click the Complete Call button. That's it. That's all you need to do to finish the call. When you're ready to take another call, you can click the Take Calls button at the top of your phone page again. Now, let's look at the case intake form. Case intake form is divided into 5 sections: property information, case details, work, hazards, and volunteer report, which is not used by phone volunteers. Of all the fields in the intake form, only 4 are mandatory. You cannot save a case unless these 4 fields are populated. They are the caller's name or the name of the resident, the phone number where they can be reached, a street address, and then the type of help they're requesting. Also, though not mandatory, it's strongly encouraged to use the notes form. Let me show you what these look like. Section 1, under property information, here are screenshots of this section. And the mandatory forms are highlighted here in red. After you enter their name and phone number, you can go down into the location field. Crisis Cleanup uses Google Geocoder for its addresses. You can find the address and select it, and then it will autofill and complete the address for you. So let's demonstrate this by going to the actual website. Let's say my caller calls in and says that their residence address is at 3211 Clark Avenue in Cleveland, Ohio. Now, something to notice is that sometimes you will have to try variations of the address. For example, avenue can be spelled out entirely, or it can be abbreviated but with an AVE period or just AVE. And you'll find all different iterations of that in Google Geocoder. In this case, I found under Geocoder 3211 Clark Avenue, Cleveland, Ohio. And as I click on it, then it's going to autofill for me in this field. When you start typing in an address, if there is already a case in the system, it will show those cases before it starts bringing up other addresses within Geocoder. That way, if somebody is calling in on an address that has already called in, you can let them know that that case already exists in the system. Sometimes, if addresses are in rural areas, Geocoder may not have that address, or the resident may not know their official address. If you're having troubles finding the address, you can put that information into the chat or use the help button to put that information in and say that you're having trouble getting this address to show up in the system, and then we can resolve that issue and get that case in the system for you. Next, you can see below the location, the address field is the notes field, and you can click on it and you'll have this field. It's so important to put any notes that you can that you feel will be helpful for volunteer organizations to understand the situation and help them know what equipment they would need, and also what the situation of the residents are and how needy they may be. Case details is section number 2. None of these fields are mandatory, but it is nice to fill out, especially this area in blue. You can see there's a field that you can type in information regarding special needs. You can ask if anyone in the home is older than 60, if there are children in the home, a first responder or veteran. And what we always try to have our phone volunteers understand is we don't want to put very detailed medical information because of privacy issues into this special needs field. And so some people they just want to tell you every single detail that's wrong with them. And that's great because sometimes people need you to listen to them. But even though they may tell you their age and exactly what diseases you have, a good way to summarize that and let organizations know that you have a person who's really in need and can't do the cleanup work themselves is you could put, for example, a man and wife in their late 80s. The wife is in a wheelchair and both have multiple health issues. You could say the husband had recent surgery. So these things are enough to let the volunteers know that these people really need help, but they're not specific details that might have some privacy issues. section number 3, and this is the work section. Now, depending on the type of disaster, some of these work types that residents can request may vary. But this is just a typical typical type of maybe a flood or a tornado or a hurricane. These are the types of work types that you would see available. And what do they mean? First of all, when you click on them, so let's say we clicked on muck out, a pop down will occur under muck out that will allow you to ask more information of the resident that will help the volunteer organizations even more. Each of the work types has a pop down that will appear once you click this box. Now, muck out generally means removing mud and wet flooring, sheetrock, damaged furniture, damaged appliances from inside the house. That's what muck out generally means. Tree work, obviously it's self-explanatory. There can be trees that have totally fallen down, or trees that are limbs and large branches are broken but have not yet fallen down. And then you can have trees that are like leaning against other trees or leaning against homes or cars. And so that's a great addition to the notes field to let them know. Yes, they have 2 big trees, so big that you can't wrap your arms around the trunk, but this one is leaning on their house and they cannot, get out the front door of their house. So that's a great example of a way to use the notes field. Tarping also is self-explanatory, but it is, especially on the roof type, the number of stories and the roof pitch. These are good information to get because number one, most organizations that do tarping do asphalt shingle roofs, but they can't do metal roofs or tile roofs. Also, if the pitch of the roof is so steep, it might be beyond the ability of volunteer organizations to do that work. The number of stories also lets them know how tall of a ladder they would need to be able to tarp that roof. Okay, debris and garbage. This generally means all of the downed limbs, plants, grasses, trees, everything out in the yard. Rocks, mud, cement, fencing. This is generally outside of the house. There is also an option for heavy machinery required. Mold remediation is self-explanatory, and then rebuilding is self-explanatory. And just understand that not very many volunteer organizations do mold remediation or rebuilds, but some do. And you can let people know that there aren't a lot of organizations that do that, but that they are on the map and visible to anyone who does. We log all property cleanup requests, even if they are for businesses or churches. And by doing that, we're leaving that decision up to the volunteer organizations as to what they can or cannot do. Now, case section 4 and 5 usually aren't used by phone volunteers. And then at the very bottom of this intake form, you're going to see the yellow save button. So once you have put all the information into that case intake form, you click that yellow save button. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about the work page. The main features we'll use on the website are the phone page and the work page. When you click on the work icon, you can see the name of the incident in the top left of the page. You can see the number of cases in that incident. You can see a map with colored dots, and you can see specific case information in the column on the right-hand side, just like the phone page. As you zoom in on the dots turn into icons. There's a legend for the colors of the icons and the icons themselves on the bottom left-hand side of the map. Now, what's different about the work page? I'll show you some features. First, there are different views in the work page. You can view information on the work page in map view or clicking on this icon to view the same information in a list view, or next to that icon, you can see the same information on the map by photos that the survivors themselves have uploaded to the system. For Hurricane Idalia, survivors uploaded 11,340 pictures of the damage to their homes and properties. The work page is where volunteer organizations find, claim, and update cases and print out work order forms. Some other features of the work page. If you look on the column on the right side, at the information for a specific case, you'll see under the number 3 work section, if the case has been claimed by an organization, you'll see the name of the organization who claimed the case. And then for each of the requested work types, you'll see a case status. Here you can see that the organization who claimed this case did the work and closed the case and marked the status closed and completed. It also records the volunteer hours of the work organization. At the top of the case, you'll see a row of yellow icons. Here are these same icons magnified. The main icon that you would use would be the pencil icon, number 1. And this takes you back to the case intake form that you use on the phone page. So if you need to go back to the regular view to update the case, add information, click on the yellow pencil icon. You can print a work order form from here, share case information, download a CSV file of the case, view the case history and who has viewed and made any changes to the case, and then jump to the specific case on the map, and then fix any problems with the case. Why would phone volunteers need to use the work page? One of the most common reasons would be to add a new case or to search cases, which could be done on both the phone and the work pages. You can view and change the case status most easily on the work page. And I'll show you how to do that, because occasionally a caller will call in to tell you that they don't need help anymore, they've been able to do the work themselves or find someone else to help them. So to change the status of a case from open to close, or maybe even from being closed to it needs to be reopened, you can go under the number 3 work section and go to the case status of each of the different debris types and click on the case status. A pop-down menu will appear. You can choose the appropriate new case status, and then when finished, click the yellow Done button at the bottom of the column. Another scenario for using the work page would be if a caller asked if they have a case in the system or what's the status of my case. Using the search field, the name or the address fields, you can search their case and let them know if it's been claimed or not. And you can name the claiming organization, but do not give out contact information from any of the organization members who have claimed their case. You can also add a case for someone other than who is on the call with you. Just start typing information into a blank field. This concludes our phone training at this time. Remember our help resources. There's a chat feature on our phone page, a news board on the phone page that gives current information, and there's a help button on the black navigation bar on the bottom left of the website. Also, in this video's description, there is a link to a user manual in PDF format you can download that is more detailed and gives screenshots and answers to detailed questions. Thank you for helping those affected by disasters.